Orianne, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm 4'11", so I'm very short. I'm massively into gaming, so mainly PlayStation 4 and kind of PC gaming. I studied Japanese at school, and I only like red Leicester cheese. There's four random facts.
I love that. That's awesome. And what are you doing right now at Experian?
So my role is basically heading up early careers recruitment for the UK and I. So what that means is my role is focusing on attracting the best young talent into the UK business. So really focusing on those future leaders, that next generation, and trying to get those high flyers that we want.
What have you found to be like extra special about Experian? What's drawing this young talent over to our company?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think we're very lucky that we have a respected brand that is really sought after in the UK, and people know of Experian as a household name, global, innovative, market leader, all of those things that graduates aspire to join. But I think the other factor is actually our diversity and our inclusion. I think the perception of Experian is that we really care about our people, and that's coming across. So I think that's a really good USP that we are putting to the market that people are listening to.
What would be some things that you've been really impressed about around D&I and what Experian has been doing?
So as part of my role, I onboard our graduates, our placement students, our apprentices. So I get to see them when they join the business and kind of set them up for success. And I think what surprised me was we hired a placement student who was hearing impaired, so he was deaf. And you imagine in a COVID world where we are completely remote, there is no face-to-face interaction, how do you do that? How do you induct someone that can't hear across video call and conferencing? So I was really surprised at how supportive the whole team and business were when I was asking questions, basically finding out how we do this. And then also when we found a solution, how incredible it was that the student was so impressed that we went to those lengths to onboard him and make him feel included, and all of the social events and the activities. So I was honestly blown away. So I've loved that since joining.
What I found was really interesting with you is that you joined during COVID. And so I've been very curious about how do we do a good job when we bring somebody on board? Like we just brought on somebody on our team just this last month. And I've been thinking about this question around how do we help new talent feel part of the team? Because it's very difficult right now as we're all working remotely to kind of build relationships and build trust through these video chats. So I wanted to ask you about like some tips you would say to managers, just based on your experience joining Experian during COVID and working remotely. Some advice you would give, like what is it like coming in? Let's start there. Advice, like what is it like coming in remotely and trying to learn about the company, learn about the team? How does that all feel?
If I'm being brutally honest, it's terrifying. And the reason is Experian is such a big, complicated business in a good way. And I think when you first join a company, you really want to make a good impression. So you're trying to absorb all of that information and really kind of make an impact. And I think it's hard when you're trying to learn that remotely. It takes twice as long, if not maybe further than that, because you don't get those coffee chats. You don't get that, oh, go speak to, Sarah that's down the road, down the hall in that room, or have a chat with Jack that's just over there. He's wearing a brown t-shirt. You miss that office interaction. So I'd say my experience has been challenging and a bit of an emotional whirlwind at times, but it's also been an incredible learning curve, and this is the way forward. This is the way businesses will operate. So it's the perfect chance for someone to adjust.
Yeah, it's I think we're all challenged by this. We're all like trying to learn how do we build teams, how do we build relationships through video. Someone's not sitting right next to us. We can't just chat with them really quickly about something. We can't have those quick chats on the hallway, on the way to get coffee, like all that little stuff that helps to build relationships, because that small talk is so important. Like sometimes we say like small talk doesn't matter, but it totally does because you get a chance to like
Yeah.
learn about people's lives, and that's part of like getting to know somebody, and then that can lead to people being more vulnerable, and all that can help with trust and building relationships. So yeah, you're right. Like it is a super challenging time. What would be your advice for managers onboarding somebody brand new, knowing like what you've gone through? And so I guess my question is advice for leaders as they're bringing on some new talent to help them build relationships, bring them into a team environment, and at the same time not overwhelm them with too much detail.
I think there's lots of practical ways that you can onboard someone virtually and make them feel included. And when someone first joins, you think that you want to introduce them to everybody. And actually, that can be the worst thing. So I recommend if you're having coffee chats with certain leaders and certain members of the team, try and stagger that over a 4 week period. You don't have to do it all from day one or even the first week. Give them time to adjust and settle in. I think another thing that's brilliant is Microsoft Teams. So Microsoft Teams is really great for those in the moment questions. So you want to make that new person feel comfortable to IM you and quickly give you a message to say, oh, you showed me that a couple of days ago. I forgot it. Can you just remind me again where I find it? So I think instant messaging is really critical for those niggly questions. So managers need to make themselves available for those kind of small talk, quick conversations. I think the other factor is don't just rely on video. So we've adjusted that this is becoming the norm. We are constantly, on stage, presentable, firm, ready to go. And that can be quite exhausting for somebody new. So what I would say is for managers, don't be afraid to pick up the phone and just have a human interaction conversation. It doesn't have to be pressured with video. And the reason I say that is video tends to be one way. So I talk, I go quiet, then you talk, Mike, then you go quiet, and we go back and forth. And you miss that bouncing off each other element that you would get if you were face to face. So if you take that away and you pick up the phone for a one-on-one chat, you'll get a lot more of that conversation flow that naturally occurs. So I would definitely say stagger the meetings and introductions, use Microsoft Teams in the instant message function for all of the little questions, and then make sure that you pick up the phone and you don't just rely on video call. I think those are three really useful tips that I found, I suppose, helpful for me when I joined.
I love your advice about the video call versus the phone call and also the Slack advice because we all like to interact in different ways. And some interaction can wait, like on Slack, you can send a message over and just wait. But then for more of those, and I found like some of the most intimate conversations have happened over the phone because not everyone wants to be on video, and there could be a variety of reasons why they might not have a space in their home at that moment, but you do want to chat. And sometimes, like I love just walking around the house. Like my wife jokes around, like Mike, why are you always walking when you talk? Like I just like walking around, and sometimes my best conversations are me just walking to the park and I'm just chatting with somebody. So I think you're right about having those different channels available and finding out like what works best for each person. Because yeah, like talking on the phone, like you can have some great conversations, sometimes better than you can with video, like we're doing now, where I talk, then you talk. But with phone calls, it's like more natural, I feel like. I don't know what it is about phone calls.
There's just no lag, there's no blocker. And I agree with you. I think managers can make an effort to, maybe 12 till 1 o'clock, they say, okay, we're going to have a 1 hour call. I want you to do it over the phone, plug your headphones in, and I want you to go out for a walk and stay on the phone with me. And I think that's a great way. Take the meeting outside of their house or outside of their environment and just get them to walk around their street or their local area. And that will help kind of boost that energy, but also give you a natural format to just have a conversation.
How do you feel about team members messaging you on the phone? Because like, let me preface that. So like with my team, we set boundaries, but during COVID, like we were messaging each other on our phones before COVID. So we've always had like a team group chat, and we'll kind of during business hours, it's pretty much work related, but then like on the weekends and it's more fun, like memes and that kind of stuff. But I'm kind of curious, like that works because we already had an existing relationship. We already had a team. So we're comfortable messaging each other. But somebody who's coming on board brand new, they don't know the team. And if they're brought into a message on their phone, and also that's kind of their personal space when it's your phone. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Mike, that actually when you join a company, you don't understand that it, I hate using the word, but that internal banter, you don't get that inside joke from people that know each other well and are comfortable. So I think my personal advice would be wait until that employee's been with the business, say maybe 4 weeks. Wait till they've found their feet, they've got to grips with the basics, and then ask them and openly say, we have a team group, we talk about non-work details, we just have a chat about our weekend, we share pictures of our dog, whatever we're up to. Would you like to be involved? There's no obligation. And if they say yes, then I think it's up to the existing group to make an effort to kind of say, oh, hi, Sarah's just joined our group. Sarah, tell us a bit about yourself. And I suppose prompt those conversations. I think it's very hard for somebody from the outside to instigate. So you need the team to carry some of that weight and be proactive in making someone feel included.
Oh, that's fantastic advice. I love that. And the other thing I want to mention, you talked about the importance of leaders being available. Because you said like on Slack, like if you have a quick question where maybe it doesn't require a phone call or a voice chat, you just quick little question, you can send it over through Teams or send an email. And you mentioned that it would be very helpful if the leader was there available so they could respond to you. But what's difficult is that, as you know, like we're all kind of working different hours. And for me, like I turn off Teams when I'm focused on a task. Like I don't want any notifications like popping up when I'm trying to focus on something. So in the midst of like what's happening in COVID, we all have different working hours. We may not always be in Teams. So we just kind of leave messages. Would you say that because of that situation, like maybe there's like specific hours that that your manager is available in Teams?
Personally, so if you have somebody new join your team, you should already be having that conversation to say your working hours. So I know one of my colleagues, he's got a little girl and he takes her to nursery and sometimes he's not available, and that's perfectly fine. You just have to communicate. You have to be a human and say, hey, I'm busy, I'll come back to you later, or I've just got to go and do the school drop off, I'll be free at 10. You've just got to be open to keeping someone in the loop. I think that's common courtesy. In terms of the niggly questions, I think the way to approach that is it depends on the accountability. So if, let's say you were my line manager, Mike, you were my direct line manager, I would expect that we would find a way that we can communicate regularly. So we appreciate that you might have, set tasks where you get your head down, but when you're inducting a new employee, they're bound to have a million and one questions. And I think if you don't make the time for them, you risk them feeling really isolated. So if Slack and Team doesn't work, then say to them, here's my work number, WhatsApp me one-on-one, and I will know that you have an individual question that you need me to answer, and I will reply because I will make time for you because you're my colleague and I want to set you up for success. I think we've all got to dedicate time and invest in new employees. If not, they could feel really lonely. They could then leave the business, or worse, they could stew on a problem for hours that you could quickly solve if you spared 5 seconds. So just be reasonable, I would say. That's how I'd approach it.
Again, super fantastic advice there. And before we go, I guess any last minute tips for leaders in managing people who have just joined their team during COVID-19?
Send a card. So to your new employee, it does not take you more than 10 minutes to write a handwritten card that you send to your employee to say, hi Sarah, really excited for you to join. Give that human touch that we're lacking. Let them know you're excited that they're joining your team. When they join, really emphasize that you're there, you're available, you're setting them up for success. You know that it's challenging, that you are there to help them, not just professionally, but also personally. if they're having a bad day or they feel stressed or they feel overwhelmed, that you're there for them, that we're all experiencing COVID together and they're not alone. And then I think the other tips are around technology. So finding the best way of working for you and for that colleague and making a real effort. The last tip I would say is our resource groups and network groups. So what I found useful was reaching out to the Women in Experian network group, the Pride community, getting to know the Christmas social party committee and making friends that way. So if you have a new employee, try and introduce them to people that you know will almost take them under their wing and really give them that kind of family community feel that they need in a business.
That's beautiful. I want to encourage everyone to reach out to Orianne to let her know your thoughts on this conversation. Orianne Wightman, thank you so much for being on this very first episode of this dialogue with employees during COVID-19.
Thanks, Mike. It was great to be a part of it. And if anyone new has joined, reach out to me, drop me a message. I know exactly how you feel. I've now been here 6 months and I'll always help as much as I can.